Earlier this spring, I had planted rutabaga, and I planted 4 rows. And one thing I didn't do, which I did with the rest of my garden, I didn't lift the vitality, I didn't bless the seeds, I didn't do anything. And out of the 4 rows, a few of them came up sparsely. So what I did is I lifted the vitality of the plants I had growing. Unfortunately, the rest of the seed was pretty much dead, so I had to replant it. Some of these that grew from the original one, this is the size of the rutabaga I'm getting. They're ginormous. I mean, they are just huge. Now, I lifted the vitality of these. The other ones, I lifted the vitality of the seed when I planted them, and they came out nice, but they're your average size rutabaga. The ones I planted early, look at the size of these. Quite the difference. Tell me what the vitality doesn't work.
Okay, so we'd better start with, we're at Laura and Jono's place, north of Helensville, and the seed's a couple of miles that way, and we've got a bit of dirt that Jono dug because it looked like it was going to rain last night. So I'm just going to rake the big lumps off and hopefully put them in this bucket. And then we're going to work the soil with the intention and the request that it comes into balance, to bring this land into balance to produce food for this family that's high vitality food. We're starting with a bit of land that the vitality is very low, which it's quite low around this area. So I've now got a pile of relatively small pieces here, and I'm going to cut it in half and put half in the bucket so we can have a look later. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going to mix this soil for a bit with my hands and break up the lumps. And my intention is whatever energy is required comes in from out there. You can call it God, you can call it the divine, you can call it Huey. I prefer Huey because he was my shepherd in Ireland. Whatever energy to come in and bring this land into balance, or bring this soil into balance. And I'm going to need that horse manure. So we've got some materials just down here beside us. We've got silica, salt, zinc, silica sand. So the silica is 2 forms of silica. The quite interesting thing about silica is probably 30 years ago in the far north, a thing called the clover weevil turned up and ate all the clover leaves in the summertime. And then someone noticed that where the water ran off the cow races, the clover was growing quite profusely. And that's because the silica on the race didn't agree with the clover beetle, so it wasn't present. So that's one of the reasons that we use silica. The other reason that we use silica is to bring the water into balance. On a goat farm down in the Waikato, he had a problem with pugging, was what he considered was a problem, with his big cows that he used to eat the grass off. And that was the only problem he had. We went to this goat farm because his best goat in 1990 produced more dollars than the best cow in New Zealand. And we figured if we could improve his production, then we're really doing something. And the only thing that he said he had problems with was pugging in the ground. He's been having dry winters ever since, for some reason. Don't really know why. Could be us. Could be something else. Could be dry winters. But he used to give us cheek because we'd turn up and we'd stand at the back of his ute doing this, just rubbing dirt aimlessly and putting a bit of this and a bit of that in, and then we'd go and throw it around his place. And he eventually became very quiet. And after silence for a few visits, we said, "What's going on?" And he says, "Well, my paddocks aren't pugging." So that was quite a nice bit of feedback. So this can be done the hard way, which is what I'm doing. We can do it just by intending. We have a man in Wisconsin. We talked him through what we do, and he's done it to his property. And he's growing, works in the city, but he's growing a huge vegetable patch. don't know what he does with all the food that he produces, because he keeps telling us that he picked, 20 pounds of cucumbers today, and the next day it's 20 pounds of cucumbers again. Like, you can't eat that many cucumbers. But he's thanking us because his garden has really changed quite dramatically. His pest problems have disappeared, and maybe at the end of this video we'll clip in something showing the radishes. There's some radishes on the table there. Can someone bring those over for me? So I've just kind of broken this up now into small bits. I'll continue breaking it up as I do it. Do we need salt? Have we got any small bits in there? Our salt's gone really lumpy. Oh, here we go. There's a little bit in there. So I'm talking about, you won't see it drop, I don't think, but 2 or 3 little wee grains. So it's the seed that we're looking at. The seed of, or the energy of, this is zinc again, just a tiny little bit. This is a thing called zirconium. We got all of these from the fertiliser place in Tirau. They wanted us to provide us with bags. We said, no, we've just got envelopes. We don't want much. This is silica powder that's very powdery. So there's probably enough on my fingers there. And I'm just going to give this a bit of a stir. Better keep those separate so I know which ones I've done. So has anyone ever heard of the Devic realm? You've heard of the Devic realm? The Devic realm are the nature spirits or the fairies. Some people talk about seeing fairies down the bottom of the garden when they were young and their parents said, don't be silly, there's no such thing. Well, there are. If you happen to be in the bush and suddenly you think you saw something out of the corner of your eye, you just scared them away because they were coming into your peripheral vision. And you did that, and so they ran away. If you're in the bush and you see a movement out of the corner of your eye, move very slowly. And if you can see things that are ethereal, you'll see them. But that's who we're working with, is the Devic realm of this bit of land. And we're going to ask the Devic realm to contain this energy within the boundary of this land, not to spill it out over into other properties. Because who knows what other people have done in adjacent properties that may be beneficial or may be negative to them, and they'll think it's whatever they've just done that's made the change, and yes, keep it contained. The first farm that Anne worked on was a dairy farm, and when we went up at Waipu, when we went to visit, every time we drove past a herd on the way up the hill, these cows are like outrageous. And then, no, that's not his farm. And then those cows, no, that's not them. Those cows, no. 5 herds later, we got to the top of the hill where this man's farm was. And his cows were outrageous too, but he was on top of the hill and his energy was falling off down the hills. Now, he didn't use fertiliser. He just used a little pinch like this. But all the farmers down the hill, they kept right on spending 20 or 30 or 40 grand a year on fertiliser. But they didn't need to, had they known. The vet's bills disappear on farms that this is done to. This is a very secret ingredient. And the reason it's secret is because it's from an organic horse. Hard to find an organic piece of horse shit. Sorry. But this is for the enzyme content. And I'm putting a bit more in than I usually would. This is to bring the enzymes in the soil, get them going. It's really horrible when this is wet soil before you start and someone tips that much water into it. The first time we demonstrated this to a group of people was on my farm. And a friend of ours, Frank, was watching. And Frank's in a wheelchair, and so he couldn't come for a walk around the farm with us because he couldn't climb the fence. And So he stayed behind and he mixed the soil up and did everything that we did, put the same amounts of everything in, and when we came back, Frank had dirt all the way up to his elbow. He's a cynical old fella. He does that on purpose because he wanted to see he wasn't putting any intention in, he was just mixing the way I had mixed it. And he had a really nice mud pie in front of him when we got back. So there's a little bit of a change of colour there because of the moisture we've put into it. So the silica that we're using, there's two forms. This form is actually ground up glass that we got from, I don't know, a place near Matamata where they grind up glass. They make kitty litter. If anyone has kitty litter, they'll probably be familiar with it. And then this one here is a very secret ingredient. It's called Woodash. Putting quite a lot of that for some reason. And this one here is Kelp. You get that from the racehorse industry or places like that if you're too lazy to go down to the beach. And I want to put quite a lot of that in. So this is actually Scandinavian kelp because that's what it said on the bag when we went to the horse place in Cambridge. Quite why we have to have Scandinavian kelp in New Zealand, I don't know. But nevertheless, is anyone seeing any change in this soil apart from the moisture being added? Silence. So a big lot of this exercise is your intention for the energy to come in and for your higher self to bring the energy in through you and to get out of the way and let the higher self put it in there. And so I'm just kind of chattering away just because that's what I'm doing, because this is going to be, someone needs to hear it or something. But I'll be very interested if people can see this when it's put out on YouTube or whatever we do with it. Because some people can see things that we can't see, I can't see. I can see it's brown dirt. Seeing anything? No? No? Sorry?
Darker brown and softened?
Yeah, I think the darker brown is because of the moisture. That would be my take on it. But softer, yes, I think that could be a good something. So for me, it's just starting to change into like worm casty bits. How am I doing?
Looks good. It's looking good.
Looks rather vibrant
Does it?
before, yeah.
It just suddenly changes.
Well, I'm starting to feel like it's cooked, or whatever the words are. These are the radishes that I was talking about that we'll see at the end with a bit of luck. They're daikon radishes. I think they might be Japanese. They're nice hot things. And it's just interesting that this man in Wisconsin has the size of my head, which is quite remarkable. You can't hear what he's saying on the video because the wind's blowing so hard, because apparently it blows a lot in Wisconsin. There we go. So we've got that. Now I'm going to tip this, what we started with, out. We'll rake all the big bits off, because that would be a pretty unfair comparison. So what we'll do now is we'll rotate that round, no trickery here, just getting it where the bucket is. So this is enough soil to treat 1,000 acres or 5,000 acres. So we take it and we just get a pinch between the finger and thumb and throw it. And we're asking the Devic realm to take that little bit of seed and amplify it throughout the property. If you're sowing grass seed, just as a matter of interest, a pinch like that's 60 pounds to the acre. A pinch like that is 30 pounds to the acre. So just the ends of your fingers and thumb is 30 pounds. Flat finger and thumb at 60. You run out of grass seed really fast. I found that out when I sowed 20 acres. Okay, we'll stop and we'll have a walk around, eh? Okay, so from here, I've been told down there's a blue container and the boundary comes uphill. And so I'm throwing with my intention out to that container and then back up this boundary line, which is the other side of this native bush. And then along the back boundary and then coming down this side, which I'm not sure whether it's just on the ridge top or over the edge. And then we're going to take a little bit and throw it round as we move. When we were at Karapiro doing a little goat farm there, the flats, and then it dropped down to the Karapiro stream, and you know, like it was downhill 75 metres and way across there, like I don't know, 200 metres across. I wasn't going to walk down there, and so I threw along the fence, along the creek, and then back up the fence. And Anne said she could see the energy as I threw it down come out and across the creek, see it coming in and back up to where we were working. Just ridiculous to me. I can't see anything, so I think I'm feeding chooks. Yeah, chooky, 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 but it's the Devic realm. All right, so we'll go for a bit of a walk around this direction, and I'm going to throw a little bit more just so you can see that we are throwing something, but I don't know that you could see it anyway. So the idea is to just ask the Devic realm to take this little bit of seed material and amplify it. There is a technique that was done in New York called the Piralandra technique, where this girl had a tennis court size garden, and we ran into a blockage. Tennis court size, how do we get to the garden out the back? Aha, veggie patch. So we're throwing this for the orchard area and the veggie patch area specifically. But the intention is out to the boundary, encompassing all of the boundary. And all of this veggie patch that's got lots of food in it. And a bit of tea tree. Right, I think we're about done. So we did this on a conventional goat farm. The lady was visiting a friend and she was telling the friend or trying to find out how to fix her sick goat. And when she left, I said to the friend who's a neighbour of ours, or was a neighbour when I owned the land in the Waikato, and I said, is that the goat farm down the road? And she said, yep. And I said, oh, she's got 250 sick goats, not one. And we threw this dirt around and just for a try, totally conventional, using all the chemicals and everything you can get. And we came back a week later and the lady was almost in a panic state. And I said, what's wrong? And she said, well, I can wash my yard down now in 5 minutes instead of half an hour. We said, well, that's good. What's changed? She said, well, the goats aren't dropping here. And for me, it was really fantastic because these goats were quite, I haven't got brownish trout. Oh, the goats were like that. They should have been white. They may be this colour. And when we came back and we went over the bank, they were this colour. It was literally like they'd actually sent the old ones away and bought some new ones. That was in a week. And I stopped calling it Evic Realm Tookies after that, because there's obviously something really at work here. We'll just sign off with this, and maybe if you're interested in more information, you can look on our website, which is absolute5d.com. That's the easiest way. You'll find a few videos there, and go for it.